Before we begin, thank you very much to Kamen Rider Ghost is Better Than Double for joining the Patreon campaign. Look, don't quote that. That is not me saying that. That's just what his name on Patreon was. You can make me say whatever you want. Doesn't mean I mean it. So, but I do thank you very much for the contribution. Thank you very much for helping out the channel. Okay. It is once again time for a Here's 10, and this time we are up to 2013. So we're still in this really awkward period for Transformer toys. Remember, the big budget crunch was 2012. They hadn't quite recovered from that. So they're still trying to figure out how to do Transformers for collectors. They're still trying to figure out where the balance lies. And it does lead to another year of a lot of unremarkable figures. It's thrilling 30, so we started getting in a lot of classic characters. You know, Beast Wars came back to the store shelves for the first time, but none of them are really great figures, you know, and I'm looking for great for this list. Admittedly, I have to go to some personal favorites because it's still kind of a thin year as far as standout toys. But there's definitely a few to pick from. Masterpiece is picking up steam, and we're in the final year of Transformers Prime. They did go out with some bangers. Also, Thrilling 30, there are a few in there we have to talk about, obviously. So, all that being said, here are the top 10 Transformers of the year 2013. And we're going to start small in the Generations line, and something of a historic figure because it's the first time a character has been represented, even though we've had him since Season 2 of the original cartoon. Let's take a look at Orion Pax. This is the first time he had his own mold. Every other time he has been a repaint of somebody, a retool. Usually Cup. Like before this, we had like G1 Cup as Orion Pax. This is a proper Orion based on one of his appearances in IDW, and it's a really clean figure. I've always really liked just how well engineered and just well put together this toy is to create a look that is still obviously where Optimus Prime will eventually live, but is, you know, absolutely passing for a younger and obviously Cybertronian take on the character. There's some surprising reuses for this toy. There's some really surprising and clever reuses from this toy, and I hate to give FunPub credit, but they actually got some cool things out of it, which kind of just proves just how interesting the figure is. It's one of those, like, surprise figures of, they didn't really have to make Orion a really good toy, but they did. They actually did. And yeah, it's worth tracking down if you have not picked one up. A lot of fun for a very simple basic, because sometimes it just has to be done really, really well. And in this case, yeah, I think it was. Understand something. I have a very, very bad weakness for dragon transformers. I love me some robotic dragons. So when Beast Hunters came out and most of the villain cast was dragons, it did some damage to my income. And the one that I was the happiest to throw money at was Ripclaw. I think this one surprised everyone with how good she turned out. First off, it's again a toy hitting a green and red color scheme without coming across Christmassy. That just hint of teal with more of like a toxic kind of like yellow swirl into the color gives her this really standout look. I liked the Beast Hunter swirling effect they did because it meant no two figures looked exactly alike. Like your Ripclaw was unique to you. Like that pattern was not replicated in others. On top of that, it's just a cool figure. I love that they focused the gimmick on her tail. It's in this great little striking gimmick that it had. Really, really cool looking robot mode. Doesn't do anything typical of a female Transformer design. You just know she's a girl. That's just it. And it's a really, really well done toy as a result. She's a lot of fun. The mold itself is a lot of fun. I keep meaning to get the Transformer Go version at some point. I want all those dragons too, go figure. But for American audiences, this was a real standout. I liked all of the Predacons from Transformers Prime, but for me, this is absolutely one of the best. I've given credit in these lists before for technical accomplishment, which means I have to acknowledge Transformers Go. I'm not huge on the execution or the look of a lot of the figures, but I will acknowledge when they're doing something fun and they're managing to work a lot of complex stuff in. So we will give a note and a nod to Kenzan, who had to be the centerpiece of the original trio. These were really effective if you really liked combination gimmicks. It's basically Energon on steroids. Not only can you form a torso and legs, you also form a midsection. So between the three, you had a lot of combination possibilities. And Kenzan did his job pretty well. I think he has one of the best alt modes of any in this iteration. The robot mode, yeah, like there's some weird gaps because of how the legs are engineered. All of them have that. If you just accept that as the aesthetic, move on and focus on what they do well, then you're far more likely to enjoy the figures. Like I said, not really as big on it as a lot of people are, but I will acknowledge the gimmick is fun. And if you've got enough of them to start mixing and matching and doing your own weird combinations, you can get a lot of fun out of it, you know? It's not a bad set for that. And Kenzan also comes with electronic gimmicks to identify combinations, meaning he's doing a lot of heavy lifting for a figure that still seems to be pretty well designed and still stands pretty well on his own as a Transformer. So yeah, I wouldn't put the others on the list. You know, without the electronic box working into this, I don't think they're as impressive. But the fact that Kenzan has to juggle so much and still manages to pull all of it off, I have to include him in the list for that. Here's one from Generations where mileage may vary. I will fully admit the experience of mine is marred a little bit by weak tolerances, but I know plenty of people who got really good ones. That said, it's one of the coolest designs they did at the time. Let's talk about an IDW Megatron, the stealth bomber design. This is the kind of thing that makes me think Megatron needs to adopt the stealth bomber. Forget all this tank nonsense. Like, look at how cool this looks. So the dark grays, the dark almost black color here is actually pretty rare for a Megatron. It looks very menacing with the hits of purple in it. The stealth bomber mode, again, is an alt mode that not a lot of Transformers use, and is not one of those alt modes that someone has claimed as theirs and theirs alone. We just kind of see it once in a while, and I think it fits Megatron really, really well. You know, it looks like it would work at the front of a Seeker army, right? And then there is just the trick to the wings. The wings have a transformation element to them, and to combine, attach to the arm, and transform into not just a fusion cannon, but a rail gun, which is such a cool idea for a Megatron. It's just such a cool looking design. It's just such a cool looking design. It looks menacing, it looks powerful, it looks unique, it looks very Megatron without having to be a gun or a tank. If this came back in modern generations with Voyager, a little bit bigger, a better price point, I would be down in an instant. I know a lot of people would. This is an extremely popular design for Megatron. So yeah, wish the tolerances were a little bit better. I might have put it higher up on the list, but I mean, look at it. Look at it. How can I not include it? I did mention a love for dragons, so yeah, no points for guessing who had to make the list eventually. It's basically just about which Predaking made the list. And this time I'm going to go with the Beast Fire design. This thing was gigantic. And it's all in that wingspan. Like, the figure itself was leader height, but then the wings were huge. This thing just looked so enormous. And then you mix in the fact that you're working in a lava aesthetic, because that's, of course, his main color scheme. But it works so well on the figure. You've got launching missiles, you've got light-up gimmicks, you've got the tail becoming one of the more menacing-looking swords I've ever seen a Transformer wield. Admittedly, not very big on the transformation complexity, because there is a lot of gimmickry going on in this toy. It's much more about flash, you know, and just the overall size and the shock of the appearance. But you know what? Sometimes that absolutely works. We've had big gimmicky figures on this countdown before when they do things exceptionally well, and he still stands extremely well as a Transformer in spite of how many gimmicky things he's got going on. He just looks really freaking cool, you know, and that's what I'm after. He looks amazing, and he plays amazing. He's a big, fun toy. Like a stupidly simple toy sometimes, but a fun toy, and that's what counts. Yeah. Big Dragon. I'm happy. Nothing really more to say about it. Let's keep going. Beast Hunters gave me a hard time for this list because they had so many new toys, but so many of them were retools from the previous years, because that was the thing. Take an old toy and retool it into like something animalistic, you know? That's where we get Croc out. And these are fun, but they don't qualify for the list. I need someone who is completely new to the line. I need someone fresh, right? And that was Shockwave. We're taking cues from animated and movie Shockwave for this one, and I think that's all for the best. This is probably one of my favorite Shockwave designs of all time. He looks very powerful. He looks very menacing. He is pulling off the gigantic arm cannon without the failings of Shock Blast from Energon. More importantly, aside from just looking like a really cool Shockwave, he's doing the Beast Hunter thing in a much cooler way than the others did. Only him and Smokescreen had the idea of removable armor, so the animalistic part does not have to be a permanent thing. Now, they do that because those two new characters had to fit in with the original set of Prime toys without, you know, like breaking the gimmick of Beast Hunters. It just made me wish they did that with everybody, because it worked so well here. Yeah, you have this monster tank looking thing for Shockwave if you want it, or you just have this nice, clean laser tank with a spinning barrel gimmick, which actually looks really cool in person. This is just a really, really solid Shockwave all the way around. There's just not a lot about it that upsets me at all. Yeah, exceptionally good toy. And the start of Shockwave just seeming to get a lot of really good toys. While Masterpiece was heating up at this time and started releasing a few new molds here and there, admittedly, there's not too many yet. Like, it's a lot of repaints and retools, but that does mean we can talk about the first iteration of the ones who came out. So that is when we talk about Prowl. Now, he's number 4 for a Masterpiece because, frankly, he is just kind of a really good take on the classic Autobot design. You know, he's not doing the engineering magic that a lot of future and even previous Masterpiece toys would accomplish. He's just doing the Prowl thing in a really, really well done way. That said, it's done in a really, really well done way. It's an exceptionally smooth Transformer that's getting a lot done. I like that the shoulder cannons are built in, so they are optional. You can stow them away or not, and they're not separate accessories. He does have the rocket launcher if you want him to be more toy accurate. He's got his gun mounts, and all that. So, and then, yeah, it's Masterpiece. So you're going to get what you expect out of Masterpiece. It's an extremely clean transformation. It's a really well-articulated, exceptionally well-detailed robot. We are in that phase of Masterpiece where we split the difference between toy and cartoon style, which is right in the butter zone for me. Yeah, it's just a well-done figure all the way around. It's really, really good. And, you know, I wish there was a little bit more to it so I could put it higher up on this list. But frankly, we have, well, to be honest, Titans waiting. And not just in size. So Prowl has to sit here at number 4, just shy of the top 3. That does not mean it's not a great toy. Still one of the best of the year. I wasn't kidding when I said we had Titans on the way, because this was the debut year for the Titan class. Which means there's no ambiguity, so why am I making you look at the number 3? Let's talk about Metroplex. So when this thing first came out, I think this is everything everyone had ever hoped a brand new Metroplex would be. I mean, aside from just, it's very stylized. But it's doing everything you would expect of the original toy. It's got the base mode. Silly as the original base mode was, this is accurate to how it looked. It's got the full, it's got his full, like rolling base mode, his, land aircraft carrier thing. And then, yeah, this thing was absolutely massive. It's the first time since Fortress Maximus in G1 in 1987 when we had a full 2-foot-tall Transformer available at retail. It's an exceptionally incredible piece, and it's still just like, it's not even just the height. I'm staring up at mine right now. It's not just the height, it's the width. This thing is just absolutely massive in all respects. Keep in mind, the original retail, it was so big they had to make you attach one of the arms yourself after you unboxed it. It was too big to fit in a standard box of any kind. And then if you got the Japanese version, you got even more accessories with it, like, because they just kept, this thing's insane. And then of course, voice, audio clips, light effects, things the original never had. Yeah, and then big enough for a lot of like standard size Transformers to play on. It's just, yeah, it's Metroplex, just the way we wanted. The only reason he looks bad now is because we've had so many better Titans since then, and it makes you kind of wish they kind of went back and made him a little bit smaller, a little bit more dense, maybe focus more on transformation abilities and all that, but for the time, it was a shock piece of a toy, and that's exactly what we got. It was shock and amazement when this thing hit. Now we get to talk about the best Generations had to offer. Yes, better than the Megatron, better than a gigantic Metroplex, because sometimes you just need to be done as well as anyone could possibly imagine to make a toy that we're still kind of talking about and debating to this day. Let us talk about Springer, based on a Nick Roche design, and I think everyone fell in love with this toy. Yeah, there's still debate that this is the better Springer toy above what we have been recently getting since Siege, and you can see why. You can absolutely see why. The two vehicle modes are incredibly distinct from each other. Unlike the original G1 Springer, the car mode actually looks like a car. And the helicopter mode does a really good job of separating itself from how the car mode looks. Wrap that up in a really good new take on Springer's robot mode. He looks a lot cleaner, he looks a lot taller and more powerful. It's just a really, really cool take on Springer. All the way around, this is exceptionally well done. Triple changers tend to get a little bit lost in the shuffle. One of the modes usually ends up suffering this. You might be able to make a case for the helicopter mode, but honestly, that's better than any of his other toys did it. It looks a lot more like a helicopter than a lot of Springers do. It's exceptionally well done. There's a reason people are still on about this version of the toy rather than the modern Siege or 86 version. It's just really well done. It looks really good. It's got gimmicks that you don't get anymore, like firing missiles. Just all the way around, just an exceptionally well done Springer toy. One of the best and still a lot of people's favorite figure of all time. And yeah, I completely understand why. If you follow your toys from 2013, there's really only one person who can actually be here number one, because let's be honest, it's kind of a perfect upgrade of the original. Masterpiece Soundwave is a 2013 toy, and oh my god, everyone went nuts over this. It's just perfect looking. Like, again, you're in that Masterpiece realm of just that really nice cartoon, real toy mix. You've got a huge amount of articulation. Yes, his finger can hit his trigger on his chest. You've got the accessories that are nice to see, like Megatron with full loadout that can be removed. You've got, extra weapons for his hands. You've got his traditional weaponry. You've got the Energon Cube that fits on the chest. That's such a cool idea. And then you have Laserbeak, who on his own could have been on this list because it's such an exceptionally well done Laserbeak. With the guns built in, The guns are built in instead of being separate accessories like the original G1 toy. He's got the camera in his head like he had on, in the 86 movie. Oh, and by the way, did I mention these are scaled to be the same size as the original microcassettes? Kind of wild. I love seeing how far engineering has come in Transformers. This is one of those where, like, I wouldn't be surprised if they did a 2.0 in Masterpiece because the character is so popular, but how do you get any better? It's such a good figure. And if you got the US versions that came out later that had all the cassettes thrown in, geez, you've got so much play value. So much play value. But for now, we are talking about the releases in 2013. And for those, I have to give the nod to Soundwave as the best of the year. And that's going to do it for this list. As always, you are free to debate in the comments below. I know there's a lot of areas of Transformers I did not touch on. I know there is going to be a lot of dispute, especially in those first few. That is your prerogative. You are free to do so in the comments below. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time.